Retail Podcast, a global conversation hosted by Alex Rezvan Viennet.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Retail Podcast, where we're continuing with our Brilliant Mind season. And I cannot think of a better brilliant mind, better retail mind than today's guest, Shelley Bransten, Microsoft's Corporate Vice President for Retail and CPG. Shelley, good morning and hello.
Hi, Ali. So brilliant mind. Wow, the bar is high, but I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for giving me some time in your day to ask some questions and share your wisdom with the world.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do, if possible, is just sort of go on a journey with you where we start. I assume you're in West Coast at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in San Francisco.
Down?
What's that?
Lockdown at the moment? Are you allowed? Do you have, because in the UK we're locked down at the moment.
Just a week ago, restaurants were outdoor seating were opened back up, salons were opened back up. So we're starting to, and if the stars align, my older son will go for the first time to his high school next week. So we might be turning a corner, Ali.
Oh, fantastic. So you are struggling like all of us with homeschooling and everything else that comes along with that.
Yes. Noon meetings have become run out, prep lunch and come back in.
And I do know that you love yoga from other talks. Have you been doing yoga while you've been at home? Have you been practicing your yoga?
I have, absolutely. It's probably the only thing that makes me seem somewhat sane these days is I'm really grateful. Most of my teachers have adapted to online classes, and I usually do yoga in the mornings before work. If I don't get to it in the mornings before work, a couple times a week, but I'm incredibly diligent because I love it on Saturdays and Sundays. And I have two teachers, one of whom is in Mexico now, but he's teaching. Oh, wow. And yeah, I love it.
Just out of interest, I probably won't know, but what type of yoga do you do?
I do vinyasa flow.
Okay.
So it's a rigorous, it's sort of an adaptation of Ashtanga, which is sort of a more purist, really about the holding poses for a long time. This one has music. And I've tried for years to meditate unsuccessfully. It's still something I really want to do. But yoga for me is a moving meditation where I get out of my head and into my body. And so, yeah, it's rigorous enough that I get tired and I turn off this monkey mind for a little bit.
Okay, got you. So for those people who sort of don't know you as well as I do, how about you sort of give us a 1-minute journey on your path to Microsoft and your early days, and how did you get into retail?
Sure. Okay, 1 minute, and keep me honest here, Alex.
Okay, will do.
So, I grew up in a family coffee business. Actually, my family were Jewish. They left Germany during sort of the first wave of anti-Semitism, and founded a coffee company in California during the gold rush to serve coffee to the miners. And it's sort of interesting in retrospect. There was sort of a cluster of San Francisco Jews, the Levi Strauss family, who obviously made the jeans, the famous rivets that could hold the gold for the miners. We had the coffee in their cups, and then Wells Fargo Bank was sort of who lent and helped establish that. So we were part of that tradition. And what I would say is that, consumer products was really always in my blood. Like I went to the supermarket with my dad on weekends. We reorganized end caps. So it was definitely something I loved. And it also meant that, unlike my sisters, who were very directed in what they wanted to do with their life, I just knew I liked brands. I liked understanding consumer behavior. Thought maybe I would go into psychology. And I found my way into database marketing because it was an intersection of sort of brand and consumer behavior, and you could validate it with science and math. And so, series of companies there. I spent 16 years at Gap Inc., where I really worked my way up from a junior data analyst to running CRM, digital marketing, and loyalty for Gap and Interpublic and Old Navy.
Yeah.
And then I put in their first cloud application, which, it seems so obvious now, but it was heretical at the time.
Yeah.
People, I'll never forget the board meeting where they said, "You're going to put our data in a cloud?" And it would, then Target had their data spill. And so, but what I said is, look, guys, right now it's taking us 26 people in 3 weeks to do a single email. And what if we could respond at the speed of the customer? And so then I went to Salesforce because I had put in that application and I led their retail industry vertical. Then I grew it pretty well, picked up their consumer goods industry vertical. And then Microsoft called me, and I was so inspired by the leadership. I mean, truly for me, what drew me to Microsoft was the culture, what Satya and team are doing. And then under every rock I looked, there was more opportunity.
Wow. Wonderful. And that was wonderfully within the minute, easily.
Okay.
Down. Great virtual clock. What's really interesting is the first time we have an impact, or in retail, the first time we delight the customer. Now, I know that you talked about just then about the boardroom and sort of the impact that you had by the transformation. Do you remember the first time you actually had an impact? Or it could be now, in terms of a big moment that you brought delight to a customer. But do you remember your first customer moment?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I also started out working on the floor of retail.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a floor moment?
There was when I was working entry level at Banana Republic. Actually, there was I was still in college, but there was a young woman who came in and had her first interview.
Yeah.
And I her, pick out sort of a blazer and a blouse and slacks at the time. And, I could just feel her anxiety and just the opportunity to help her and, build her confidence and, have that, clothes be part of not just the clothes, but her own, kind of self-worth to show up at her interview. And we actually kind of kept in touch. And so that was really fun just to be part of, it was just the close of the shell for helping her on her way.
I got you. And I think that's quite telling about you in terms of, especially when you were talking about the opportunities at Microsoft and how underneath every stone there was an opportunity you were just talking about, how you sort of see growth in every sort of, wherever you look, you saw this sort of, I guess, glass half full. Do you, in terms of when you do look at Microsoft, because you've been here 2 years, 3 years now?
2.5, Alex.
2.5 years. What's the things that you've really surprised you at Microsoft?
I mean, it's hard to argue with just the intelligence of the people and you go to meetings on a specific subject and you have like someone who is, a technical fellow, but not just like on the technical side, whether it's, what we're doing with vaccine distribution or research about gaming or research about data centers and the future of mobility or autonomy. The bright minds that are in Microsoft, it's honestly, I think people who have been with the company for a while don't realize what an embarrassment of riches we have.
Yeah,
really.
I can imagine.
And then of course the thing that, as I said, that really actually drew me, because you can find smart people anywhere, is that I always say it's a star with a heart. Like it's got a soul. And I think there's such a narrative about big tech, and some of it's true.
Yeah.
And when I meet with our leaders, I feel like there's a soul in the company. Right. And for me personally, like as hard as I do work, that matters a lot.
And do you see, in terms of, because I know, again, part of your empowerment, you're always empowering the people around you, empowering your customers. I always feel this sense of empowerment. Are there in terms of lessons learned that you could share with potentially people maybe in Microsoft or outside Microsoft that you think would sort of help them on their journey through their career? Because obviously I know we did that 1 minute whistle stop tour and you just sort of arrived university and then arrived CVP at Microsoft. Are there 2 or 3 things in your mind that you could call on?
Well, it's interesting that you call it empowerment, and I think I do that, but I'll be honest, like some of that comes from deep insecurity that other people know things that I don't know. So I don't look at that as something to be anxious about. I look at that as an opportunity to like, I always hire people that are smarter than I am in the areas that I need. And I'm not threatened by that. I'm excited by that because I get to learn. So that's, I think, really, hiring and surrounding yourself with good people who know things that you don't know is, that's always been with me. I, like you said about being kind of positive and optimistic, I go naturally to where it's not obvious. Like go look around the corner for what's next, whether it was, thinking about a database at the Gap when everybody wanted to be in vogue and, like in print media, building up a team of data scientists or the cloud. Or frankly, for me, going to Microsoft, where people are like, what are they doing in retail? I encourage people to go where it's not obvious yet, because that all the fun is in building sort of these new capabilities in the context of a protected brand. And then I have just like a really simple management thing that is no dummies, no meanies. Like as I think about bringing people on my team, first, no meanies. Like life's short. I don't want, we spend a lot of time working. I don't want to work with people who are jerks. And then, people who are smart and who are passionate about what they're doing. So those are some of my tips.
Is there anything that you would like to do more of that you're not doing and something that you're doing less of, specifically during lockdown? Because obviously this view is probably pretty much what we're seeing every day, right? We turn up in our offices and we're doing everything. But is there something that you would like to do more of that you're not doing, or something you're doing too much that you would like to do less of?
Sure. Work-wise or just in general?
In general, whatever you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I was a very active reader of books, kind of pre-children, pre-working. I wasn't a book a day, but I was probably a book a week, and I read a lot of nonfiction. I read a lot of foreign policy. I have found that my attention for reading these days is really low, and that makes me sad. So that's something I wish I was doing more of in lockdown.
Yeah.
And then things that I would like to give up. I mean, it's probably the other side of that coin. I find that turning off after being, in front of these lights all day is really hard. So I tend to go to, like the social media, I have to say I'm loving TikTok right now. It's just fun. I love
Likewise.
Instagram. I still love shopping. I moved in the middle of the pandemic, so I'm on Pinterest a lot. So I sort of beat myself up for that stuff because it's like a mind release, but I know it's not accretive to anything. I guess I could say it's part of my job and staying close to the consumer.
It's research.
It's
Especially
research.
the moves.
On the flip side, I've been doing a lot of TikTok cooking with my younger son, and that's been super fun. So,
There's been a lot of talk about the change in consumers, in consumer behavior. NRF, there was every talk started with the move to digital, people and consumer behavior and basically behaviors changing. I was curious on your thoughts on that in terms of how do you see we've changed, and what do you see retailers potentially having to change or adapt to as we come out of lockdown? Are there any sort of elements that will stay with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think there, as you said, there's no question, sort of the 10 years of e-commerce growth in 10 months. And then what that means, like the trove of data to understand the consumer better that was sort of like harder to get at with brick and mortar. It's undeniable. And then the new behaviors that come along with it, whether it's, curbside pickup or, just actually for the first time, 75% of US consumers bought groceries online for the first time. I look at my own parents who had their Thanksgiving turkey delivered, from online purchase. That was never part of their process before. So I think that will stay. I also think the topics around sustainability and re-commerce, as we've been home more, we can research more, we have more access to content. I think that's going to stay. So between new behaviors, re-commerce and sustainability, or as I'm hearing, sort of the path to net to zero, as we get more like action oriented about this. I think those are really here to stay. Some of this stuff, Ali, I think we have been talking about for a while in this industry. What's changed is almost the speed and the tenacity and the willingness for risk that I'm seeing in our customers to make those changes.
Understood. So Shelley, we're coming into the final part of our fast-paced interview. I'd love to get a view of what's top of mind for you right now.
Yeah, well, obviously, even with some of the things that have been challenging in the pandemic, I feel incredibly lucky and privileged to be where I am. And so what is on my mind as I watch my kids having the ability to go back to school, think my life has changed, but not as dramatically as so many others, is just the inequity that this pandemic has amplified, and the divide between those of us who have this privilege and those who have lost businesses, lost jobs, kids haven't been in school for almost a year. So using sort of my position as a place to do something, to the business of business is to improve the state of the world. And in retail and in brands, the big guys have done incredibly well, and a lot of small people who started, a surfboard company, have had a little store, have had a hard time. So what's on my mind is, how do we use the power of Microsoft and all of our capabilities and our people to help some of those smaller retailers and brands get back up and running? Because we all know that's the backbone of small businesses, is the heartbeat of society and the economy.
Absolutely. I mean, one of I call them the COVID entrepreneurs. In the UK, there's been a massive increase in, and it's so needed, because what we've had here are a sort of a series of collapses of major brands. And so fingers crossed is the fact that as these smaller, more dynamic brands sort of increase their presence, that they can now move into these areas or these holes in the high street, which we're hoping we'll see grow. Obviously in the US, I know the malls have been the big victims, or these big department stores. Well, that's been brilliant. Shelley, thank you so much for carving some time out for us today. I'm really enjoying the Taking Stock podcast series, or video series. As you can see, I'm a great fanboy with Richard behind me. It's a great first season episode to kick off. Just out of interest, how many did you record in your seasons, in your first season?
I think I've done 11.
Okay.
And I've just been amazed by, I think we all have more time for content.
Yeah.
We've got a great lineup coming up as well. And it's just been fun, because it has been just like this, Ali. It's been a mix of, business, the future, and just people connecting. So
that's brilliant. Thank you so much once again.
Oh, thank you. It was really fun.
Podcast, a global conversation hosted by Alex Resvan, VNet.